our guns, burning up our flag, playing shitty country music. They forgot about the hag. Well, don't you think it's time we all got downright mad? Let's take our country back. Well, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And that's just what'll happen if you rob me to get a fix. No, I ain't messing around. I got no problem putting shitheads down. Let's take our country back.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Farmer Joe's Fresh Market, located at 1401 Southwest Pine Island Road in beautiful Cape Coral, Florida. Everything you need in more. Lee County's greatest grocery store is Farmer Joe's. Joining me is multimedia commentator, attorney, political analyst, Mr. Ford O'Connell. Welcome to Cracker Culture. I am Smoking Joe. Well, Ford, I hope you had a good Independence Day. I know Farmer Joe's had a wonderful celebration for the folks, and they gave out free hamburgers, hot dogs, and had bounce houses and face painting for the children. And then me and Jesse, it was our anniversary, so we went to Seed to Table, where Miss Jessie helped Marvin the Marshman and his son light off the fireworks at Seed to Table. And I'm not just saying this because I was there and Miss Jessie lit those fireworks. That was probably, honestly, the best fireworks show I've seen in my entire life. They done an amazing job. They had like 5 platforms. I mean, it was something to see, Ford. I wish you'd have made it out there.
Well, let me say 2 things. 1, happy anniversary. And 2, there is no better holiday in America than Independence Day. And it was our nation's 247th birthday. We got to keep the democratic experiment going forward. And, every single time I live through another Independence Day, I just have to say how thankful I am to be born and live in this country.
I can't agree more. Well, not to be outdone, the scene at the West Wing must have been off the chain. Somebody forgot their cocaine. I'm going to show a little clip here about cocaine in the White House, a little funny clip.
Issue at the White House.
The building was evacuated Sunday night after the Secret Service found a baggie of powder.
White powder, a suspicious substance.
White powdery substance.
Testing revealed it was cocaine.
Cocaine.
Cocaine. We know because we use gigantic lines.
We have a yellow bar stating cocaine hydrochloride.
It's not cut.
There's no way of knowing how it got there.
No.
Or whose it is.
Oh.
A lot of people guessing.
Because we use gigantic lines, just a little bit wider.
Is it the frat house or the White House?
Gigantic lines. That's real money because it's real. And I'm confident.
The only thing I'm surprised, Rob, is that it's not a kilo.
That's the American dream.
Vision, dreams of passion.
Well, that was just a little funny clip, but they did find cocaine in the White House. So I thought that was, I'm surprised that this white trash house that Biden's brought it into is the first time we've heard of cocaine. I mean, even when Carter was in, they had Billy up there smoking pot with Willie. We never heard about cocaine in the White House.
Hey, Joe, look, you're absolutely right. When it comes to Roger Clinton, Billy Carter, Marvin Bush, we've never heard of the Secret Service calling in about cocaine found in the White House. And look, I think this should raise red flags. I don't know if this is Hunter Biden's cocaine, whose cocaine this is, but it makes you wonder who's in charge of the White House, and that should concern, all Americans. Let me say something else. There is no question about it that the White House is trying to bury this story. I know where this cocaine is found based on media reports. I've been in that area, and I'm going to tell you, they like to say it's highly trafficked, it's this, that, or the other. There is a Secret Service agent who literally sits in that room. They know who it is, and they're trying to bury the story. And let me just put it this way. If this was a Republican president in the White House, you'd be hearing this for months from the mainstream media. All right.
So Ford, I mean, with the cocaine found, they're saying it was in a room where staffers placed their cell phones. However, I heard Mike Pence say today that he'd heard it had been found in the library, the cell phone holding area, and he said, who knows where it was actually found. Do you think with the Secret Services, all the tools they got, will we ever find out who owns the cocaine?
No, because the Biden White House doesn't want you to know. Ask yourself this question. If anthrax was found in the White House, would we know who brought it there or anything else? Of course we would. And that is the entire point. The Biden White House is normalizing cocaine in the White House and just telling the mainstream media to move on. And the mainstream media, because they like Joe Biden, is going to do exactly that. And that's my whole point. This should raise red flags for all Americans, regardless of party, because it makes you question who's truly in charge over at the Biden White House. And I'm going to tell you something. I've seen media publications try to equate other times of cocaine in the White House, but never in my lifetime is the Secret Service called in cocaine being found in the White House.
It's just too funny. I mean, it's every week we got some new comical event that has something to do with Biden. Now, and Biden has steadily shown a decline in his cognitive ability during his presidency. It seems to be rapidly deteriorating. Here's just a reminder of a few of his bumbles throughout the past.
Some people ask whether you are fit for the job. And when you hear that, I wonder what you think.
Watch me.
Looking at your child, you know that needs an instant to live. And not having the money to pay for it. Not a joke. Think about it. Think about what you'd think about.
You're going to make that all cement. You're going to use that as basis to build on because you need security, you need stability for what you have on top, and you're going to build up stories beyond. I mean, this is incredible.
This is the United States of America, for God's sake.
Mr. President, thank you.
Yeah, last clip looked like he was sneaking into his daughter's bedroom there. He didn't know what to do.
Well, look, Joe Biden stumbles through speeches. He wanders off in the middle of media interviews. He confuses basic facts and current events and even people. And he's now touting railroad projects from the Pacific Ocean to the Indian Ocean. This man is not well. There is something wrong. His mental acuity has diminished. And if we had an honest media, which we don't, there'd be a more robust conversation exactly about his mental acuity.
Well, even with all the allegations of foreign bribery, the mainstream media uplifts him as the world's premier leader of all time.
Well, that's exactly right. They treat him like a king who cannot be questioned. Look, we have a presidential election around the corner. The American people have a right to know whether or not he's actually capable to serve another 4 years. And then when we talk about foreign bribery, okay, we're talking about allegations with China, Ukraine, and Romania, some of America's greatest enemies. The question is he compromised by America's enemies as well? If the media was not blocking for Joe Biden, the Democrats would have already picked another nominee for 2024.
I just don't understand how a group of people can think that everything he's doing is good, and a group of people can sit here and just say, oh my God. And I mean, we're on the oh my God side, but we were talking about how slow the news cycle's been in the last few days with the holidays. But the truth is, with the Biden administration, there's always something to talk about.
Well, unfortunately, here's the problem, and this is a corrosive effect of the media, is that a lot of Democrat partisans are taught to hate Republicans, and they're seen as more evil than the Chinese Communist Party. And that's truly unfortunate. You know, they like to say that Trump did this or Trump caused this. If you look back to 2005, 2006, between what is being taught in our schools, what is being shown in the media, what is being covered in the media, you recognize very quickly that Democrats basically say to themselves, you're right, Joe Biden is not very good, but Republicans are the devil. And unfortunately, that's where we are in America.
Well, it's a shame. Well, while many Floridians are asking where the hell our governor is, Trump is gaining momentum not only in the GOP primary, but also polls suggest that his leading numbers for the general election as well. Ford, what can you tell us? Where the hell is Ron?
Well, I don't know where Ron is, but he's certainly down in the polls when it comes to the 2024 presidential primary. He's now trailing Trump by 33 points nationally. And what's amazing here is not only is Trump gaining steam in the Republican primary, but he's also gaining steam in the general election against Joe Biden. According to the latest Echelon Insights poll of the swing states, the states that will decide this election, your Nevadas, your Arizonas, your Pennsylvanias, your Wisconsins, Donald Trump is now leading Joe Biden by 7 points. So not only is Donald Trump slated to win the Republican primary, now he's on course to win the general election as well.
Well, me and you talked about this. All these other people jumping in, they're not jumping in because they think they can beat Trump.
No, they're not jumping in because they think they can beat Trump. They're hoping to obviously catch lightning in a bottle. But I think that the fact that more people are jumping in and eyeing the possibility of jumping in, including Brian Kemp in Georgia, is more of a testament to DeSantis' stumbles. If DeSantis wasn't stumbling, they wouldn't be talking about entering this race.
Well, you know, I'm really interested to see what DeSantis' next move is, because as pro DeSantis as I've been for my governor, I'm not there for him at president yet. And I know a lot of people has got their differences here. I like both men. However, in the last few months, Ron has done more to dissuade me from pulling for him than I ever thought he could do.
Well, I think part of it is because a lot of people don't know how to knock off Trump. They don't realize what an immovable force is. Not only is he the former president of the United States, he's also a two-time Republican presidential nominee, and he's also the father of the America First suite of policies that we love so much. So for when Ron DeSantis tries to get to the right of Trump, maybe on illegal immigration or whatever the issue may be, I think that Ron's team doesn't quite understand that as far as Republican presidential primary voters are concerned, Donald Trump is the gold standard. I think there may be a future for Ron, in 2028 and beyond, but right now, this is Trump's nomination to lose, Trump's election to lose. I'm very happy with Ron DeSantis in Florida, but when it comes to the national stage, Ron still has a lot to learn.
Man, we got a lot of issues in Florida we need a governor on deck for right now. Now, we just had federal judge Mark Walker, who blocked the new Florida election law, calling it Florida's latest assault on the right to vote, claiming that Republicans are pushing restrictions on voter registration groups. Ron really needs to be here. He's the one who put that law into effect.
And look, there's no question about it. Let me say a couple of things. There's a lot of laws that this legislature, the Florida legislature under Ron DeSantis passed, that are good laws, but they needed more time to work out the mechanics of it and to survive federal challenges. This is a great example of this. This is a law, and I totally agree with Ron DeSantis and the legislature on. I think they were a little bit ham-handed about how they wrote it. What does SB 7050 do? It basically says that non-citizens cannot be handling voter registration operations in the state of Florida. I totally agree with that. Everyone should agree with that. That is a law that should be passed in every single state in this country. But unfortunately, because the bill wasn't well written or whatever mechanical flaw there is, it is now being challenged in federal court by an Obama appointee. It's not enough to pass good laws. You have to pass good laws that can survive Democratic scrutiny in the media.
Well, and to put it like this, Judge Walker, Mark Walker, a lot of his decisions have been favorable when they've been to people when they've appealed them. He's lost a lot of his cases like this.
There's no question that DeSantis should succeed on this. And let's remember what we're talking about here. Let's remember who filed this suit. The ACLU, the ACLU of Florida, and a few other groups, Demos. I mean, you're left-leaning crazies, because your left-leaning crazies know that if they can use non-citizens to register voters in Florida, they can usurp the ballot box just like they did by flooding it with the Zuckerbucks in 2020. This is what the Democrats always do. They're trying to play offense. And their legal argument is they should be able to do this because while these people are non-citizens, they're citizens of the state of Florida. Be very, very careful of the wording and the muddying of the waters these people try, because this is how they try to overrun the ballot box.
Well, I really wish Ron would just sit down and try to push these lawmakers to do better with writing these bills and concentrate on Florida for right now. If he was to concentrate on Florida, I would back him in a future run for president. But right now, he's not showing things that I would expect from somebody that was a presidential candidate.
Look, I agree with you. Here's the point. I voted for Ron in 2 primaries. I voted for Ron twice in the general election. Heck, I was one of the first early donors to Ron. I think Ron has a lot to offer, but I also don't put this all on Ron. This is something we talked about. You and I do not like more government. More government is always bad, except in one case, and that is when it comes to the Florida state legislature. We have a part-time legislature that it has to address full-time problems. I think we need a full-time legislature. And let me give you the number one example of why. The biggest problem facing our state right now, Joe, is insurance. And if we don't figure out how to deal with property insurance, this great heyday that Florida is having, this second rebirth that we are having, is going to go down the tubes faster than you and I can blink an eye. If we don't fix insurance and we don't come up with a solution, what we call beautiful South Florida is not going to be so beautiful anymore.
Yeah, the cost of living in Florida is already went way higher than I could have ever imagined it being. And with the taxes, plus with the increase on property ownership, the value of the home goes up. That automatically increases how much you're going to pay for insurance on top of this disaster we just had. And the insurance companies are quite frankly going bankrupt. I don't know how we're going to ever survive this.
Yeah, and I question, a lot of what's going on in Tallahassee. I mean, it seems to me that they keep, kowtowing to the insurance companies. And I know the insurance companies are in a jam, but they keep kowtowing them and they keep putting Band-Aids on the situation. And they need to be clear-eyed and sober about what's going on. This is not about fixing insurance prices right now and in a healthy insurance market right now. This is about for the next 20 years. And most people don't know this. I mean, yes, in Southwest Florida and Florida, people know, hey, property insurance is going up. People don't realize because of what is known as insurance stacking, basically Florida and Long Island, New York are basically flipping the bill for the rest of the nation. And if we don't get this right, we're going to be in real trouble.
Yeah, it's scary. Well, I had an informant contact me early this morning about an incident that happened in Cape Coral at a summer school this week. A 6-year-old child come home from camp confused as to why mom and dad had lied to her. The parents inquired as to what the child was referring to. The child said they had been instructed by the camp counselor that boys could marry boys, girls could marry girls, and to prove that the parents had lied to the counselor showed the child pictures from the counselor's phone. This is upsetting, and the first thing you think about is the laws that DeSantis has put in place. And I reached out to the parent of this child, and I talked to the child, and they said, we thought the same thing, but because this was a camp and not a school, that there was a little iffy that it don't apply there. So the father confronted the staff only to be berated for not being accepting of and teaching his child to be accepting of other people's lifestyles. When I heard this, I thought, this is unbelievable. Had this been anybody else's child, we might not have ever heard of this. Just so happens the dad is a seated city council member. So I reached out to council member Keith Long, and I asked him about what exactly took place. And he was very, very nice gentleman. He told me, he said, there's still some investigation underway. And he said, I want to make sure people know this was not a summer school, that it was a summer camp. So then I proceeded to ask him, I said, and who they operate under whose authority and direction? Ain't that the city of Cape Coral? And I could tell I hit a nerve. He said, well, that's something else we're investigating. And, you know, and I said to him the same thing I just said. I said, you know, if that'd been my kid or some else's kid, we wouldn't even know. He said, yeah. He said, I pointed that out as problematic. And I will later on update people in the future what's happened with this case. But when a parent is being, their parental supervision is being obstructed by a counselor, and from what I understand, the counselor was a teenager, and that was bad. But to make it worse, they called the counselor supervisor, who was the one that started berating the parent until she found out that it was a counselor.
Look, I've always said this, whether it's summer camps or schools, we are both parental rights advocates. We agree on that. But this is bigger than that, okay? This is, I know it's hard to imagine what could be bigger than parental rights, but it's bigger than that. It's what is age appropriate, okay? You were talking about a 6-year-old, okay? In that, because you're talking about someone so young who's not in their teens, when it comes to counselors and when it comes to teachers, there's two things I should never know about counselors and teachers that are dealing with people, say, under the age of 15. I should never know what their political leanings are, and I should never know what their sexual orientation preferences are. Unfortunately, somehow, because of the left, we've lost sight of that. And it's very corrosive, and I feel it's undermining the nuclear family. Look, when someone turns 18, they want to do whatever. God bless them. I wish them the best. But until then, this has a corrosive effect on our society. And if this is going on in Cape Coral, now imagine what it's like in San Francisco and New York.
Right. Well, and you know, look, I mean, there's some fine folks in Cape Coral, but there's a lot of people that lean way left in Cape Coral. And unfortunately, there's a lot of them in the Cape Coral politics that are the same. And you know, I just think that some of these people are stupid enough to think that they're right, and what they say is right. And these counselors, you know, they should have more scrutiny before they're allowed to handle children at any age, but especially at that age. That there should be some real major supervision over people who are dealing with 6-year-olds.
Look, I couldn't agree with you more. Unfortunately, that rarely happens. I mean, just think back with ourselves. When I think back now to the 70s and 80s and some of the people we were dealing with too, that wasn't there. But you didn't have this stuff going on. And my concern is when this stuff goes on and somebody's very young and their brain is being formed, I think it leads society to a nasty place. Not to mention it supersedes parental rights, which is what we should be nurturing, because we should be nurturing the nuclear family.
Well, you just said back when we was growing up in the 60s and 70s. When I was growing up, I don't remember experiencing daycare. I had a lot of aunts and uncles that whipped my ass when I got out of line. But, you know, there was a big difference. When we were growing up, the community was close enough that we knew who the crazies was, and our parents kept us away from them. Now there's too many crazies to keep up with.
Well, I think that's a great point. You know, when I was young, it was real simple. They'd open the door, throw me out of the house. Here's a stick. There's the lake. Go deal with it. You know, But you're right. You can trust your neighbors. You can trust authority figures to have your best interests in mind. And now you have no idea who's who, who's a good guy, bad girl, whatever it may be. And I think that that's unfortunately another sign of the corrosion that's going on in our society. Young kids don't know who to trust from cops on down.
Well, the excitement's starting to get underway as the Warriors are preparing to enter the political arena. On our last show, we told you of the person's Nepotism dynasty was promoting son-in-law David, I'll say his name right, Mullica, for county commission. Doing just what his wife told him to do, he pledged his soul to the Millerites. Yes, he is being managed by TM Strategies, another Terry Miller, Millerite. But we have a glimmer of hope, Ford. Entering the ring, the common sense conservative Brian Farrar. Now, Ford, a lot of people might not be real familiar with Brian, but Brian, from everything I've seen, is a good man. He's a Navy veteran. He's been on many boards, and he is respected in the community. What do you know about Brian?
Well, I did a lot of digging myself like you, and I'm very impressed with what I've read and learned in conversations about Brian. To your point, he's a Navy vet. He has his own company. He's also someone who served on the Lee County Mosquito Commission. He served on the Bonita Springs Utility Board. I mean, he's a very, very impressive person. And he has also served, I believe, with the Chamber of Commerce, Southwest Florida, Inc. That might put some of the Millerites
in a bind,
given how they're getting funded by the Chamber of Commerce.
Boy, it would be nice if he come in the chamber and didn't back no more Millerites. That would be amazing.
Well, you got Tiffany Esposito, who's Millerite numero uno over there.
Speaking of where's Waldo Esposito, I did get across my desk that she is being challenged by a grassroots candidate, and God, I wish him the best. But I'm not going to put the name out yet, so I don't mess up. But it is somebody from the Libertarian Party is decided to challenge Miss Esposito.
Well, the Chamber of Commerce is going to protect Miss Esposito if Terry Miller doesn't. They've already invested a lot of money in that seat. So, look, she could be beat, but you better come with your A game.
Yeah. Well, that'd be interesting to see. Well, Ford, I want to kind of start to wrap it up. I do want to talk about that the Florida statewide assessment scores have been released. You might not have seen them yet because Lee County hasn't posted anything on the district website. Maybe it's because the scores are so poor they're embarrassed. 54% of students are not reaching benchmarks in Lee County. Lee County can boast of achieving 10% worse than any else in the state on average. This is sad, and we have members of our school board who are out doing other podcasts and events boasting about how well they're doing. It's all lies, Ford. They're not. I mean, the proof's out now. You can't keep lying, and when everything else that we come up with, all the data says that you're lying.
Well, look, let me just start with the basics. The fact that 54% of Lee County students are not basically reading at grade level, okay, is an embarrassment. I mean, they honestly need to be held accountable. This is atrocious. If these kids can't read, Lee County is basically foobarred, okay? And now let's also remember who gave this test. This is the FAST test. That's the Florida Assessment of Student Thinking Test. This isn't a Joe Biden test, okay? Right. This is our own test conducted by our own state government telling you that Lee County's failing and can't read. People on the school board and the teachers in the schools need to be held accountable because this is unacceptable. And of course, let me tell you something. Most people are not going to hear the results of this test because it's going to be buried. Yeah. And given that we spend $1 billion on Lee County schools and greater than half of our kids can't read, really should concern people.
Well, I agree, and I give props to my researchers because they stay on top of these things and keep me informed. But you know, I said when they decided to elect a superintendent, I said in the beginning that was a mistake because we know politicians aren't elected in Lee County. They're either paid for or appointed. You don't just go run on a grassroots ticket and get in, which is exactly what you said about Tiffany earlier. And by doing that, what people don't understand what they gave up in Lee County, they getting this elected superintendent we voted for is going to take the power from the school board to govern the superintendent away. Right now, the superintendent has to answer to the school board and is under their directions. Once that's an elected position, he only answers to himself and to the public. And they're all supposed to answer to the public, and we see how fast they are to do that.
Well, look, we're already getting terrible results with the current situation. If you don't think the results can get any worse, get ready to have this elected school board superintendent, because that is exactly what's going to happen. Everyone is going to have divergent interests. No one's going to be accountable to anyone. And who's going to ultimately lose? The boys and girls of Lee County.
Absolutely. And I'll go as far to say is you have to change that board currently 100%, because the majority of it's controlled by the Millerites, and the rest of them are either too corrupt or too weak to be effective. And until we get a board in there that's going to do what we're paying them to do, and not trying to be out getting free meals and traveling all over the galas and stuff, we need somebody that's going to come in and hit the ground running. We don't have that currently, and we ain't looking at seeing it in no time in the future.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And it's not just replacing one member with another member. You've got to have an entire school board that is working for the children, that is not in with conflicts of interest, that is not corrupted or controlled by Terry Miller. Look, it's a very, very high bar. And unfortunately, the people of Lee County, especially the children, deserve a heck of a lot better. And unfortunately, this does not get enough publicity. It doesn't get enough publicity on Wink News, you name it. Unfortunately, this is a problem, in the next generation of people in Lee County are the ones who suffer.
Well, Ford, I appreciate you joining me today for another show. Folks, I cannot stress how important these upcoming elections are. Everything you do is going to matter this time. We have got to stop the corruption in all politics, but especially in Florida. I love you, Florida. Thanks for joining me, Ford. I'm Smoking Joe. We'll see you next time.